Hello, and welcome back to the Journal. My name is Nina, and in just a few weeks, I will be leaving for Orlando to start my cultural representative program at Disney World. Today, I want to walk you through the second part of our little admin/paperwork video. A few weeks ago, I was already sharing with you the steps we need to take as German citizens to make sure we can leave the country and live and work abroad. And today I would like to walk you through some of the steps that as a cultural representative you will need to do from the Disney side, which are a little more universal. It's not just for Germans. Obviously, I will be sharing this from the perspective of a German, and I will share my experience doing this in Germany. But by far and large, this should also be applicable to you if you're from a different country. So going back to the beautiful moment when you finally get your offer. Let's say you've been to your Disney in-person interview and now you're waiting eagerly to hear back from them. And for us, it actually didn't take a super long time. Like I heard back from them 5 days later, so it wasn't even a week. Of course, depending on how soon after the interview you're available and how early Disney wants to plan with you, that means that you will probably hear back from them sooner rather than later. However, it shouldn't take too long, probably. At the very least, they will let you know that you're on the waiting list and they cannot place you at a certain date yet. But they will definitely want to work with you in the future, and they will let you know a more definitive date at a later point in time. In this email, they will ask you to do 3 things. One is, of course, review your offer and accept your offer. And that is done in the recruiting platform. So you're being asked to log in. You will find your offer letter as a PDF document there, and you can read through it, and you will accept it by clicking on a button, which is the digital equivalent of signing a working contract. And then you will be asked to make sure that you uploaded your documents into Docs. At this point in time, this is mainly your passport, which probably you've already uploaded. You will then get another email that is asking you to sign into dorms, where you will accept your program dates and pay your program fees. The program fees are, at least for me at that point in time, $442, which translates to something around 400 euros. And that covers basically the administrative effort that Disney has, the first weeks of rent as well, because you won't be paid immediately. And since the rent in Flamingo Crossings comes out of your paycheck, they will need to get the rent in some other way. All this is happening basically in the first 2 days after you get your offer. This is what you would do right away. And afterwards, the most urgent things are done. One thing that you will still need to do after that, as a cultural representative, you will need to upload into Docs a statement of English, where you just write down in just a normal plain text document, you write a few sentences in English, why you speak English, how you learned English, and that you speak English. This is a requirement from the United States Citizen and Immigration Services. This is not coming from Disney. This is related to the visa. They just want to have an assurance that you will be able to communicate with English-speaking guests and that you can therefore fulfill your job as a cultural representative. It needs a handwritten signature, but otherwise it's an extremely simple document. Don't overthink this. You will also need to provide the information in Docs where your consulate will be to pick up your visa and to go for your visa appointment, because this is something that Disney needs in order to make the visa request for you. Basically, how this Q1 visa works is that Disney, as your employer, will make a petition towards the United States Immigration Services. And for that, they need to know which consulate you will be going to. In Germany, for example, I believe we have 3. I believe we have Berlin, Frankfurt, and Munich. So if you're from Germany, I assume you would simply pick the one that's closest or most convenient for you to reach. In my case, it was obviously Berlin because that's where I live. So those 2 things are what you can still do in Docs. Another thing they propose you is if you need a certain type of accommodation, meaning that you need certain living conditions to be fulfilled for medical or also religious reasons, like for example, a pet-free apartment because of allergies, or a single bedroom because of snoring, then they also link you to a website from where you can make those requests. Because while once you sign up for housing in dorms, which is what we'll get to later, you can put certain preferences, room preferences, for example, but those of course are just preferences. It is not a given, it's not guaranteed. And then you're pretty much done with everything you can do for that point in time. And then depending on how far away in the future your program start actually is, it means that you will have to wait a few months, maybe even a few more months. And yes, you get nervous, but you just need to trust the process. They still want to have you. They still want to work with you. They haven't forgotten about you. It's just there's simply nothing they want you and need you to do at this point. But the next step will be you will actually not hear from Disney directly. You will hear from Yummy Jobs. This is a company they work with, and they outsourcing certain tasks in the process to them. And Yummy Jobs basically asks you to get your police check done. And they also tell you about health insurance. They tell you about the fact that Disney will offer you a health insurance after 3 months and then the next first of the month. And they basically advise you to get your own health insurance for the time until Disney is offering you a health insurance. So to make sure that you're insured at all times while you're in the US, and they propose you a health insurance that you can review. And if you're interested, you can get it, or you can get one of the other ones that I suggested in the other video. For the police check, they link you to an example website for Canada. You, of course, will need to look up Germany if you're from Germany, or you can simply Google Führungszeugnis, and then you will be forwarded to the online portal of the Federal Bureau of Justice. And there you can very simply and quickly and easily apply for a police background check online. It costs 13 euros. And one thing is good to know for this, because this is a mistake that I made. They will also ask you in this web portal whether you will need an apostille. I don't know how to pronounce this word. I had never seen it before until that point, and I didn't know what it was, and I still kind of don't, which is why I made this mistake, because it said, do you need this apostille to use this police background check abroad? And I thought, yes, I will be going to the US, so I need it. They don't tell you anything else about it. So I just clicked on yes, and then only afterwards I realized that this meant not only that I had to pay another additional $25, but it also prolongs the whole process for 2 or 3 weeks. Moral to the story is, don't click the apostille. I was just being stupid. I didn't do my research. I didn't ask people who could have told me. Let this be a lesson to you. I'm telling you, you don't need this. And then once you have your background check and you upload it, and after not much time at all, I received an email from Yummy Jobs just confirming that they received my police background check and that the background check was done and completed, and I'm good to go. Then comes another period of waiting, and then about 3 to 2 months before your arrival date, you'll finally be able to start your visa process, because you will receive from Disney your I-797 form, which is the petition that I talked about to US Immigration on your behalf, and they got the approval and they sent the document back to you that you can then take to the US Consulate to get your Q1 visa. Now, I know it's nerve-wracking waiting for this, because you are imagining that visa processes take a long time. So having to wait for this until what feels like so little time before your arrival date, maybe you already booked your flight, because even though Disney will tell you during the interview that you should not book a flight before you have your visa, but on the other hand, let's also be realistic. You simply cannot book these flights last minute. It would be way too expensive. So I do understand that it is pretty nerve-wracking waiting for your paperwork from Disney, but indeed you cannot make this appointment until you receive the I-797. What you can do, however, and that is something that I would strongly advise you to, and it also helps with the waiting, is to already fill out your DS-160 form. That is a form that you will find on the website of the US Consulate, and that is information that you will need to provide, a lot of information, a lot of detailed information that you will need to provide about personal data, your travel history, your previous visits to the US, social media accounts, what will you be doing now in the US, who's your employer, who's your contact. This information you need to indicate in this form before you can make an appointment for your visa. And you can already do this because in your offer letter from Disney that you received months ago, you will already have the information that you need. You will have the address you need to provide. You will have the contact data from Disney that you need to provide in this DS-160 form. So you have all the information that you need. You just need a passport photo. For this purpose, it's okay if it's a digital photo. You don't need to go to the photographer. It's okay if you just take it with your phone in front of a white background, because you will need to upload that to your DS-160 form as well. The advantage of that is once you actually do receive your I-797 from Disney, you're ready to go immediately. Like this DS-160 form probably takes a couple of days to fill out because, like I said, it's a lot of information and probably a lot of stuff that you will also need to look up. So you save a lot of time after receiving your I-797 if you fill out this form beforehand, and you can save it. You get an application number, and via this application number, within a certain amount of time, I think it's like 30 days or something like that, you can access this form and keep working on it. And a tip for filling this out is save after every page. Sometimes, like I said, filling out this stuff takes a lot of time. And if then you find yourself in a position where the next day you have to do it all again, that's really annoying. And once you have your I-797, on this form will be a number you will need to provide in your DS-160 in order to make the appointment. And then you will also already need to pay the visa fee, something along the lines of 220 US dollars. So I think it came out at 194 euros. They ask you to bring a payment receipt. You don't get a proper document as a payment receipt. I just printed a screenshot. And then they also ask you to bring the confirmation page of your appointment booking. Those two things they explicitly say you should bring to your consulate appointment, along with your passport, obviously, because you will leave it there. The visa is basically a paper they stick on one of the pages in your passport. Interestingly, they explicitly write somewhere, I don't remember if it was Disney or in the on the website of the consulate, they explicitly write you don't need to take your I-797 form anymore in printout. That is not true. Out of all the things they asked me to bring, that is the only thing they actually wanted to see at the consulate. So if you want to be on the safe side, I would recommend just bring everything you have. Just have a folder of all the papers, your offer letter, whatever papers. I think it doesn't hurt to print out everything that's important, have it in a folder, and take that complete folder to the consulate. In between making the appointment for the visa and actually going to that appointment, you will also receive an email that links you to a video that you will need to watch. That is, I think, about a 15-minute video about US immigration, about your rights and also your obligations as a non-citizen who is temporarily working in the US. And it is just basically explaining things like you're not allowed to get in conflict with the law. You have to leave the country when your visa expires, which is going to be likely about a month after you entered the country. It is not always the date that is on your visa petition, because this can move up if you decide to enter, for example, a week in advance because you want to arrive early and maybe get over the jet lag. This is important to know. You also need to check on your visa once you get it, whether under entries you have the letter M. That means you have multiple entries. That means you can leave the country during your program, and that means you can re-enter. That's a curious video because they are very happy and cheerful, but they talk about basically how you go to prison and all the terrible things that can happen to you if you don't follow the rules. It's quite a curious watch, but it's cool. It's just 15 minutes. You just need to watch it. And once you watched it, that task is basically complete. About 6 to 8 weeks before your arrival date, you should receive another email from Dorms that asks you to sign up for housing for Flamingo Crossings Village. And it is actually pretty simple. You just confirm your data, your arrival date, your candidate number, your name, your birth date, you give your emergency contact, you can give your apartment preferences. There are different types of apartments. You can have your own bedroom or a shared bedroom, and you can have your own bathroom or a shared bathroom, and you can order those room types by preference. Again, this is only a preference. And then you also indicate whether you would be fine with a mixed gender apartment, and you can indicate whether you want to bring a car. I don't want to bring a car, so I cannot tell you what happens if you click yes. I think something along the lines of you will have to pay a parking decal. So basically you pay your year worth of parking. I heard it is $200, which amounts to like $17 per month for parking. If you don't have a parking decal and you didn't pay for parking at Flamingo Crossings, you are not allowed to park. Actually, this name tag thing, that was also one of the steps. For whatever reason, it doesn't really have anything to do with housing. Which name and which city you want to have on your name tag for Disney that you will be wearing while at work, that is what the housing registration is all about. You hit submit and you wait for your lease contract. That will take another 4 weeks or so. Next is then your visa appointment, probably. So you will go to the consulate in the town that you indicated in docs. And here's a super important thing which I learned the hard way. If you go to the US consulate, and this is true at least for Berlin, I have heard in other cities in Germany they were less strict. Maybe they are less strict in another country, but in Berlin, at least on the day when I was there, they were extremely strict about this, and that is what you can take into the building. They say already in the invitation, please don't bring any electronic devices. Nothing at all. No phone, no smartwatch, no headphones, no whatever it is. You cannot bring any bags that is larger than really a small purse. You cannot bring liquids. So the best is really to take only your documents, this folder that I mentioned, and your passport. And ideally you have someone there with you who can wait outside with your valuables, or you have a car where you can leave your stuff. Because the thing is, they have someone outside checking us while we were queuing outside, and he would not let you in the building with this item. I got extremely lucky because I was there with two fellow program participants, two dear friends of mine who I met at the interview in Frankfurt and who are doing the program starting on the exact same day as me, and who are also from Berlin, and they were there by car. So luckily I could leave my stuff in their car, because otherwise I would have been, I don't know what I would have done. If you're all by yourself and they really make you give up your phone and they won't accept it inside, then you have a problem. So really take this seriously. I did not, and I was so lucky that my friends were there with the car, because otherwise I don't know what I would have done. I might have just had to go back home, miss my visa appointment, forfeit my program start date. I don't even want to think about what could have happened, because at the end of the day, they wrote it in their email and I didn't comply with what they asked for. So fair enough. And that was the most stressful part of the whole consulate visit, to be honest with you, because afterwards it was pretty smooth. It was just, you were queuing for a while, and then they sent you from counter to counter. The first was just a general passport check and a check of my I-797, and just some general, like, what about the passport photo? Actually, because initially with the DS160, I uploaded a digital photo. I just took one of myself with my phone in front of a white wall. But then I made proper passport photos for this visa appointment, because they specifically sent you an email before and hint towards the fact that you will need a photo that complies with the guidelines. And it also has to be a recent photo. It cannot be older than 6 months. But in the end, it turned out the person said that's fine. So now I just have 2 photos for nothing. But it's fine. Then you are being sent to the next counter, you give your fingerprints, and then you go to the next counter. I believe it was just 3, and there you will answer a few questions about what is going to be your job there, what do you want to do there. And then the guy said it's approved. It will take about 10 days. Already when you make your visa appointment, you can choose whether you want to have your visa sent to you via mail, then it costs a little extra, or if you want to pick it up from an official visa pickup location. Obviously, since I live in Berlin, I decided to pick it up. I would get an email when it's ready, and then I could pick it up within like 10 days or so. But 2 days later, I think I already got an email that I could pick it up the next day. And the whole appointment at the embassy, including waiting and everything, I think was about an hour.
Quick addition, because I didn't know this before. Once you have your visa, you need to upload it into Docs. In Docs, there will be randomly popping up new tasks every once in a while, and it won't send you reminders. So you need to check yourself. I didn't do this, but about 2 weeks before the start of my program, I got a notification by Disney support asking me to complete the tasks in Docs, and it was uploading my visa. So if you want to avoid that, you should just regularly check in Docs. And once you have your visa, you should go in and upload it there so Disney has it on file too.
Then, about a month before your arrival date, you will also receive an email from Workday. Workday is not specific to Disney. Lots of companies use Workday for employee documentation, sort of like an HR tool. They ask you to first sign up with Workday and then to complete your onboarding tasks. I'm not going to go through them in detail. They were a lot of small tasks. Usually just confirm your personal data that they have on file, read through this document and sign that you have read and understood it, the Disney look, non-disclosure agreements, probably like 10, 15 of such tasks that you will be guided through in Workday step by step. You will basically have a dashboard where it's like you have so and so many incomplete tasks that you need to do, and then you can complete them one by one. And at some point, once you arrive at the point where you put which is your preferred name to be on that name tag and what is your preferred city. The two things people will immediately see about you is your name and your city. And if they want to pick up a conversation with you, they will probably ask you about your city. So it should be a city that you feel comfortable talking about long and often. That is the final step. I had a little issue with Workday. It kind of got stuck after the first two little tasks, and then I didn't have any more tasks to complete. I don't really know why, but I just logged in the next day and then all the other remaining tasks popped up. So if that happens to you, it's good to know the last step you should arrive at is this name tag step. If you have not yet arrived at the name tag step, you are not yet done, and there should still be more tasks to complete. So if there are no more tasks and you haven't done the name tag task yet, then I would recommend just wait a bit, log in again, and eventually the remaining tasks should appear. You will also, for me, it was the same time. I don't know if it always happens at the same time. The I-9 verification, while Workday is informal, internally what Disney is using, the I-9 is official and related to immigration, and that is about verifying you and verifying your authorization to work. This is related to your visa, so you cannot do the step before you get your visa. The whole thing was a little bit confusing, but essentially what you will need to upload there is your passport and your visa. I think they call it temporary authorization I-551 or something. So if you see that, that is your visa. They don't write upload your visa, they say upload your I-5 whatever, but they mean your visa. And then you need to provide your address, and that is the Flamingo Crossings address, because you basically register and verify as a person who will be living and working in the US for a time. And that is the first step of the I-9 verification. There's also a second step where someone in Disney has to do something. I don't know if the same again from the Disney side or something else, but the point is that this can only be done once you arrive. This will actually be part of your arrival itinerary, that you have an appointment with a person from Disney to do the second step of the I-9 verification. However, you will receive daily reminders still from the system to please complete step 2 of the I-9 verification. You can ignore this. They will come every day, but you cannot do this and you're not expected to do this. For some reason, the system still expects you to do section 2 and will remind you on a daily basis, but you can just ignore those emails. And then about 2 or 3 weeks before your arrival date, you will get your lease for your apartment, which is really exciting because you will see if you got your preferred apartment type. But the only thing you will need to do with this is sign it again digitally, which is then basically your rental contract. And then there's also, again, a bunch of paperwork of acknowledgements like the house rules, what you're allowed to bring, what you're not allowed to bring, guidelines that you need to follow, community guidelines. And they do recommend you to have renter's insurance. But if you have a proper Privathaftpflichtversicherung in Germany, which I talked about in my previous video, I believe this renter's insurance should be included in a normal liability insurance that we have in Germany. And then that is it until the point that I'm sitting here, which is about 2.5 weeks away from my program. In general, it is a lot, but don't feel intimidated by it. Everything is super well and in detail explained in the emails that you will be getting step by step. There will likely be some hiccups here and there. Maybe you're not able to log in somewhere. None of this is an issue, really. Disney is extremely responsive and they're very eager and willing to and happy to help you out if you have a problem. I think overall, the whole preparation, everything that you need to pay before even arriving at Disney would probably come out at somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 euros. I think that's good to know. There's a 400 euros for the program fees. There's 200 euros for the visa. That's already 600. Then you may pay about 500 euros for a year of health insurance. Those are probably the biggest items. Then you're already at 1,100. You will need to travel to Frankfurt. You may need to travel a second time to go to the consulate. Then there's 13 euros for the police check. But so I would count around 1,000 to 1,500 depending on where you live in Germany and how far away from Frankfurt you live and from the cities where there are the consulates, Berlin, Frankfurt, Munich. That is roughly the cost that you need to consider when you think about applying for this program. And that is before you even went to Disney.
Late edition number 2, obviously, as you may have noticed, I skipped completely the part about actually traveling to Orlando, booking your flights and your hotel. If you plan to arrive a few days early, obviously that will bump up your costs quite a bit as well. Now, you may know the date when you want to fly to Disney, but you may not know the date when you want to fly back. Maybe you want to travel a little bit in the US after your program. And even if you knew, many airlines may not allow you to book flights so far in advance. You will find that one-way trips are going to be way more expensive than round trips to Orlando, from Germany at least. So your best bet is probably going to be either actually booking a round trip to Orlando and then simply not taking that flight back to Germany, or many airlines will also offer you the opportunity to buy a flex fare for that second flight, which means that you can simply book a random date to fly back to Germany, and then usually at a later point before this flight, obviously, you can change the date for no or only a very small change fee. From what I researched earlier this year, flights should range somewhere between 600, 700 and 900 euros round trip in economy with, let's say, a standard luggage allowance. And so everything that you find that is under 600 euros is extremely cheap and I would recommend to go for it. And everything that's above 900 euros, I personally find quite expensive. So you may want to keep looking. Obviously, it will depend on when exactly you want to be flying, where from, and of course which class as well. Do you want to fly economy or do you want to fly maybe premium economy to maybe also have a bit more luggage allowance? If you have a stopover in the US, you will need to go through immigration at that airport already with your visa, and you will also need to pick up your luggage and check it again. So if you have a stopover in the US on your way to Orlando, you need to allow a lot of time for the stopover. 1 hour is likely not going to be enough. In terms of hotel, the sky is the limit in Orlando. Your cheapest option is probably going to be a shared Airbnb, while the most expensive is probably going to be staying in a Disney-owned hotel on Disney property. Probably the Airbnb will cost you under $100 a night, while the Disney hotel can cost you multiple $100 a night. So both together, a flight and hotel, I would assume will run you somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500 bucks as well. So your total will be bumped up to 2,000 to 3,000 euros in total altogether.
So yeah, that was all in terms of paperwork, both Disney and non-Disney related, Germany related. I really want to make sure to share all my experience, my tips and tricks, mistakes that I've made so you don't repeat them. I hope this was interesting for you. If you're preparing for your program, waiting for your next message from Disney, congratulations. If you got accepted, it is super exciting. Yes, a lot of work is waiting for you, but a lot of reward as well. It's going to be an amazing year, I'm sure. I will not think anymore about all the stress I had with all the paperwork. It will have all been worth it at the end. So if you have any further questions at all, let me know in the comments, send me a DM. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye.